Welcome out there in the First Family. My name's Craig Maynard. I'm a first senior mentor for FRC West, or the First Robotics Society Western Canada. And it's my pleasure to do our weekly, monthly, hourly webcasts. And they always come live, and I always run out of things to say in these live webcasts. Anyways, today I'd like to be speaking to you guys about Solidworks. We're going to give you an introduction to Solidworks and show you around some of the features that Solidworks gives us and how that powerful modeling tool, which is provided in your kit of parts, can be used to really help you guys in your first robotics adventures. It's a great 3D modeling tool, very easy to use, but very powerful, and at the same time there's a lot of incredible features you can use. You can build your entire robot out of Solidworks if you want to. So let's get going. Now, when you first boot up Solidworks, you're going to be greeted with this wonderful screen right here, and we'll see. Let's just take you on a little tour of some of the features of Solidworks. Now, Solidworks is what's called a parametric modeling tool, which means that everything is designed through parameters. You set up the length of a line, the relationship of one line to another, how a point coincides with another point. It's all done parametrically, and these parameters build up until finally you create your final drawing. And in Solidworks, it all starts with a sketch, and from a sketch we move out to a 3D model called a part. And then from a part, we can expand that into a mechanism. And we can have joints on these mechanisms. We can have relationships with these mechanisms that make the thing very, very useful and powerful. So let's start by opening up a new part right here. So we walk into this new Solidworks document when we click on File New, and we have a choice of choosing a part, which is just a single piece, an assembly, which is a group of parts, or a drawing, which is a 2D representation of a drawing of a part. And if you wish, you could also go into Solidworks tutorials, and there's a lot of very fine online tutorials here in Solidworks to guide you through all the steps to get you going. And also there's a ton of stuff online too. If you go to YouTube, there's quite a few Solidworks videos out there for you. So let's go in and start with the part. We'll just open up a simple part and have a look at the Solidworks user interface. Now this interface, this is the program that the graphic user interface is used to draw with, and it's kind of similar to a lot of Microsoft products, such as Word, Outlook, Excel. It's got these ribbon style toolbars. So if you look up at the top here, you've got a bunch of pull down menus, view, insert, tools, all those pull down menus. You have a standard toolbar. You can see right over here. This is our standard toolbar. We have over here a Solidworks search window. So if you were to type in a word in there and do a search for it, we can get instant help or location on that particular part. On the side, we have a command manager. So this is our command manager right here. All of our basic commands are available, and we have a number of pull down tabs that gives us different command managers depending on what function we're trying to do. On the side over here, we have our feature manager. So our feature manager shows up right here, and in the feature manager we have these tabs. So this is the feature manager design tree for the parts, and there's one for properties, here's one for configurations, and you can see as you move through each of these command manager tabs, a different feature manager shows up on the bottom. You have a heads up toolbar at the top of your drawings. You can see right here we got a little heads up toolbar. And we also have the graphics area. So this main screen you can see is our graphics area. And a very important little feature down at the bottom here, this is called our reference triad. This is going to be the thing that describes the orientation of our X, Y, and Z axis. Okay. And if you want to click on an arrow anywhere, you can look straight down to that level. So if you click on X, X comes straight to you. Click on Y, click on Z, and so on and so forth. So you really get used to that user interface after a while. Getting accustomed to it was is key to understanding and navigating all these powerful SolidWorks features. So I think what we should do right now is start with the basic sketch operations of SolidWorks. So you see I brought you to the sketch tab right here, and these are the basic tools used in sketching. So the first thing we have to know about SolidWorks is everything's done on planes. Everything's done on flat surfaces in space. And there's 3 flat surfaces which are provided for you automatically. There's a front plane, a top plane, and a right plane. And these planes can be viewed simply by clicking on them in the Features Manager on the side. We can also move over here, and we can rotate around to whatever plane we want to have as well. There's the 3 planes. You can see them. You can see them dark up right there, up on the sides. So let's start by making a drawing, and we're going to make a drawing on the let's just say the top plane. So now we've chosen the top plane. Instantly, you see a little selector box on the side that shows up right by the word top plane. This first icon is the sketch icon, which lets you do your drawings. This is your show. You can show and hide these sketches if you want to. And this is called normal to. So normal to simply tilts the plane until the plane is facing you directly. So let's start by using some of the basic tools here. We're going to go to the front plane, and we're going to choose to sketch on that front plane. Instantly, we get a work surface open up, and that work surface is what we're going to be working with. And let's have a look at the tools we have to sketch with. We start with a line. You can see we can have a line, a center line, or a midpoint line. The line is quite obviously just a 2-point line. You can sketch it any way you want to. You notice a little origin shows up right here, so everything's in relation to that origin. You can draw a center point line. Center point lines aren't actually part of the drawing, but are used for reference or things like that. And notice when I get close to vertical, it seems to snap to vertical and snap to horizontal to kind of help you out as well. There's center point line, and then there's midpoint line. And the midpoint line starts in the middle, and as you drag the line out and rotate it, it continues out from there. Okay. Now I can escape out of this, and I get my pointer back. Now if I select any of these lines, I can select them. Now that's the active line. I can delete it, and I can delete that line, and I can delete that line. Other tools we have here to play with are the rectangle tool, which we can define using a corner rectangle, a center rectangle, a 3-point rectangle. So let's do a few of the obvious ones. Let's choose a corner rectangle. So you can see a corner rectangle drawn right there. The center rectangle, you start with a midpoint and you draw your rectangle out to whatever size you want. 3-point rectangle, you choose 1 point, then another point, and then a 3rd point. You can create a rectangle that way. And there's a 3-point center rectangle. 1 point, 2 points, it defines a center and 1 corner, and then you define the diagonal. So all these options, and a parallelogram. Okay. Now if now that you've drawn these surfaces here, you can see over on the side I have an option here to actually save my work, to actually create these sketches. These sketches aren't actually there right now, and if I wanted to, I could X out of them, and if I X out of them, the sketches will be discarded. If I save them, then those sketches become components. So I'm just going to X out of these, and I'm going to discard the changes to these rectangles that I've just drawn. Look at the other tools we have for sketching. We have a straight slot. In a straight slot, what you do is you draw 2 lines, right, like this, and then you set up the radius, and from there we have a slot. So we can have a number of slot types. We can have the slots where we define the 2 points, and then the 3rd point is a radius, or you can go from the center point to the outside point, or there's a curved one right there, a 3-point arc, and another center point arc slot. Click on the 3-point arc, for instance. We'll do our first point, and now we draw the second point, and now we'll draw the 3rd point, and then we draw the radius. We can do our wonderful little arc slot. Okay, let's just discard those, And let's move into the circle tool. Got a circle tool right here. And the circle tool, we have a perimeter circle or a center point circle. We'll start with a center point circle. So the center point circle, we define our first point and then a radius, and the circle's easily drawn from there. That's a center point circle. And the perimeter circle is you draw first one point and then a second point and a third point, and then a circle is made that connects those 3 points together. That's called a perimeter circle. There's our arc tool right here. With the arc tool, we select our plane as usual. We'll put in our first point. Second point is the radius, and third point is the arc. So we can circumscribe any component of a circle that we'd like to have. Here's a little arc right there. Okay. This is the polygon tool. With the polygon tool, you decide how many sides you want it to have. Let's say, well, we have 6. Let's leave it at 6. And we'll just draw our first point. And there it is right there. So it's just drawing from a center to a radius, and we can create all the polygons we want. Okay, let's lose those and go back to a spline. With a spline, again, we choose the face. Now the easiest way is just to go to this little sidebar right here. We'll choose the front plane again, and we'll choose one point, then a second point, and then the third point, and you notice it bends the line just like the line was a stiff rod. And that's a spline, and a person can draw any kind of a spline they want. Okay. This is for inserting extra planes in the sketch, which we'll talk about later. We have a box here for doing text, if you'd like to put text in there. So text on the front plane again, and we'll just type in the text we want to have. This is our text. You hit enter, and the text shows up right there. Okay. And we'll just discard that. So you see we've got all the basic tools over here. Another useful tool we should look at is the smart dimensioning tool. So now, one of the most important things you do in SolidWorks drawings is you have to properly define them. Everything is parametric, so definitions are incredibly important. So let's see how we can actually set up relations between objects. First thing I'm going to do is let's just put a box in here first of all, and we'll put a box onto the front plane, and just choose a corner rectangle like this. And now you can see, right now we can see that the box is undefined. So if you go down here, it says underdefined. Underdefined indicates that the box itself, it doesn't know how wide it is, how high it is, where it is in relation to the origin, or anything like that. So we have to define those things, and it's very important every drawing we do that we make sure that it's all correctly defined. So the first thing we should probably decide upon is whether we want to go with imperial or metric with our drawing. Okay, well, to do that, we're going to go down here to the corner where it says IPS. IPS means inches, pounds, and seconds. We can also choose millimeters, grams, and seconds, meters, kilograms, and seconds, centimeters, grams, and seconds. So if we want to go metric, let's just choose millimeters, grams, and seconds. Okay, so now we are millimeters, grams, and seconds. Now you can see we have a part down here. This represents our sketch, and I'm just going to delete that sketch right now. I'm going to delete that one, and we're going to start a new sketch. So again, we'll choose the square, and it says which face do you want to draw upon. Well, I want to draw on the front plane, and I'm going to draw a box right there in space. Okay, and MMGS is a format selected. Now we're going to go over here, and we're going to choose Smart Dimensions. Now with Smart Dimensions, you can click on an edge like this and drag it out, and then it asks you what length that's going to be. So I'm going to say, I'm going to round this up to 75 millimeters, and I click on OK. Okay, and now 75 millimeters is defined for the height. You've also got to define the width of the square, so we'll click on that line, drag it down, and let's call this one 100. Like that. So now we have the width and the height defined. Now, unfortunately, we're still underdefined. Now, what more information do you need for a square? You got the height and the width. Well, you don't know where it is in space. Now, this point right here represents the origin. And if I can define this box with respect to the origin, I have got it perfectly defined. So to do that, I'm going to take my smart dimension and I'm going to go from this edge to this point right here. Smart dimension from this edge to this point, and let's call it 20 millimeters, like that. And now we see this is perfectly defined. And the only thing that's not defined, see, now if I take this and I try to move it, oops, let's escape out of that. If I take this, I can't move it sideways. It's locked down because of this dimension right here. And I can't move this one because it's locked down by that dimension. But if I grab the top and the bottom, you can see I can still move the box up and down because there is no stipulation on how high it has to be from this origin. So let's go back to smart dimension again, and we'll go from let's go from this line to the origin. Let's try that again. We'll go from this line to the origin, and let's say it's an even 50 millimeters. Okay, now I've defined 50 millimeters, and you'll notice that all of the lines are black right now. They're black when they're fully defined. They're blue when they're underdefined. And you can look down here in the bottom of the screen and it says fully defined. So this is a fully defined square. Okay, now we can actually roll around. Now if I hold the mouse wheel down and rotate, move the mouse wheel back and forth on the pad, you can see I can rotate the image all through space. You can see all three of the planes are rotating. Now the planes aren't visible right now. So if I was to go to my front plane right here, and we could make that plane visible. Click on this plane, you can see that plane visible. Click on this one, there's the top plane, and there's the right plane. So all three planes are visible. All right, so let's go back to the front plane, and I'm going to go to the sketch itself, and let's say we want to keep this sketch we've just created. To keep it, we're just going to choose the select, and we now see the sketch is there. If I want to, I can now edit the sketch again. I can edit the plane of the sketch, or I can go normal to. So if I go normal to the sketch is brought forward. You can see it, it shows up like this. All right, now this is a nice two-dimensional surface. Now we can also set up all kinds of constraints. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this sketch right here. I'm just going to delete that one. And let's create an object that's got a number of constraints. And to do that, let's just start with a line tool. And we'll go on the right plane. And we'll just go normal to the right plane. Where are we here? There we go. So again, we're going to go to the right plane. We're going to go normal to the right plane so it's facing forward for us. And let's draw ourselves a shape on here. And I'm going to draw the letter E. Okay, so I'm going to make it kind of crude. I'm going to start from there and do another line down like this, another line like that, another line like this, another line here. And we're just going to make this thing super ugly. That, and a line from this point up to here, and another line to here, and a line to close off my loop like that. And we have got a very abstract E. It's very disorganized, fully undefined. Nothing is related to anything. Oh, I've got a disconnection here. I should probably connect those guys together. So I'm going to take this, and let's just connect it onto there like that. So everything's all connected. All right, now, next thing we want to do is we want to talk about constraints. Constraints are relationships between lines and points and things like that that we can use to define our shapes. Now, the first thing I want to do here is I'm going to set up one dimension. Let's start by this dimension right here. Now, if I click on that line, you can see I've selected the line. I can select a point on the line. I can select a midpoint on the line. There's the midpoint with the little symbol with the square and the two lines through it. That's the midpoint symbol. But I'll go back to selecting the line itself. Now, if you look over in the line properties, it says you can add a relationship. You can make this line horizontal or vertical, or you can fix it in space. So I'm going to make this line vertical. So now you see the line is totally vertical to how it used to be. Okay. This line right here, similarly, we can be horizontal or vertical. Let's make it horizontal. So this line becomes horizontal. And this line, we can make it horizontal too. Oops, we have a connection problem here still. So I'm going to take this and connect it on there again. And we can select all of the lines that we want to be horizontal, and we'll just select them all. So I'm going to go Control and click on each of these lines. This line, and that line, and that line. And we're going to make them all, well, the top one is horizontal already, so why don't we make them all parallel to each other? Now, all the lines are parallel, but everything's all kind of juggled around. It's found a way of being parallel, but should have taken away the shape of my E. So let me move things around a little bit. And now we're setting up constraints. So you can see on each one of these lines, these little green dots on here, these little green squares are showing me what it's doing. So we can see these lines are parallel. And this line right here is parallel to line 9, and this line is parallel to line 7. This line's parallel to line 7. So they're all parallel to each other, and the top one is horizontal. Let's do the same thing with the side lines. So if I was to click on this one, and I'll Control click on all my verticals like this, that one and that one, and we're going to make those all parallel to each other. Okay, so now all the vertical lines on my E are parallel, and I can still move my object wherever I want it to be in space, and I can pull this up and down, but you notice those constraints that I said are still there. They're still parallel to each other, just like I defined. But my E is starting to look a little bit nicer now. Okay, so let's say we want this line and this line to be in line with each other. That's called collinear. So let's try that. We'll select this line, and we'll Control and click on this line over here and choose collinear, and now those two lines are in line. Another relationship has been set up. Now if I move it back and forth, you see they follow each other. Okay, let's see, we have a little dot here in the middle. Each one of these things has got a center point, and that one's got a center point here. How about if I take that center point, I'll click on it and click on this line. Okay, and let's see, we can't do that. And let's make this line right here and this line, we can make those lines collinear. That sounds good. Now, what else can we do? This corner point right here, sort of, the whole E is floating in shape. It's totally undefined. So this is my origin, and that point right there is where I want the origin to be. So I'm going to hold the Control key down again, and I'm going to select the origin point, and I'm going to select the corner of the E, and we're going to try to make those things together. It didn't seem to work too good. I'm going to just save this, and we're going to go back into the sketch. So we're going to edit the sketch again, right click on there, and I'm going to choose this and that and that, and we're going to make them coincident. Okay, now those 2 points are coincident, the origin and the corner of the E, and that kind of pulls everything out of shape. So let's resize things here, move things back the way they are, and there's our E. Okay, now I think these three lengths, this one, and this one on the ends of the E, they should be the same length too. So if I select that one right there, Control, select that one, and select that one, and I make them equal in length, that should shore things up a little bit. And I think I should make this one equal to those as well. So I'm going to choose those two lines, I'll make them equal. So now these two lines, is that one equal with that one as well? Let's have a look. Make them equal. There we go. So now those three are equal. They can't be moved. Okay, and there's our sketch as we see it so far. I seem to have created a outline on our E. There we go. I'm just going to get rid of that. We'll talk about offsetting entities in a few minutes. Okay, so now we have this length right here and this length right here. Let's put some relationships on there. So I'm going to put a smart dimension on this line, and I'm going to call this one 200. Okay, so now that line is 200, and this line right here is equal in length to that one. So I actually, no, it isn't. So I should be able to stretch this out. So if we go back to this line, grab it and stretch it out, we can see now it's able to stretch to whatever length it wants. So this is obviously not defined yet, and this one is not defined yet. Alright, we're going to have to set those things up. So I think what we could do is we could say, let's draw a construction line, an invisible construction line from here to there. Okay, so now we have a line here. So I'm going to select that line, and I'm going to select this line, and I'm going to make those equal to each other. So I'm going to make that construction line hidden, and I'm going to right click on this one and this one, and we're going to make them, well, we can't seem to set up that relationship. That one and this one, let's make them equal. Okay, so this line is now equal to that line, and this line right here, oh, let's see now, this one can't move, or can it move still? It can still move. This one can still move because we don't know the length of this thing. Well, let's make this line and this line equal in length. That kind of locks that one down, so that now this one can't move. Awesome. And this one can't move, and the only one that can still move is this one. And I guess the only thing left for us to do is to take this line right here and this line, and we will make them equal. Okay, so now the E is fully defined. So just using one length here and a lot of parameters, I've been able to create a fully defined shape. Okay, and so we'll just save that, and now we have the letter E. And I don't think we need to see that, so I'm going to go back into the sketch again. Let's just get rid of that little line. So right click on it, we'll say Edit Sketch. I'm going to choose that line, and I'm going to make it invisible here. I just want it to be for construction. Now, if I was to take this line right here and I was to delete that line, we don't want to delete the whole sketch. We just want to delete the line. So we're going to go back into the sketch again, and oops, there we go. Edit the sketch, choose a line, and delete the line. That's good. And now we have one problem left. Since we've deleted that line, we no longer have a relationship here. This thing no longer knows how far in it should be. Okay. So let's just set up one more dimension from this point to this point, and we'll make it 50 like that. And now we've defined this thing. Is it fully defined? Yeah, it's fully defined now. Okay, good. Now I've gotten rid of that little line, and I got the shape E. All right, the next thing we're going to look at is we're going to move beyond the sketch plane here, and we're going to go to our third dimension. So if you look at the next feature we have, this is called Extruded. Now the Extrude feature allows us to take a sketch and to bring it out. So if we click on the Extrude feature, it says choose a plane in which to sketch the feature across section, or use an existing sketch to use for the feature. Well, we're going to use an existing sketch. We're going to use this one right here. And obviously it has chosen the E, which is great. Now we can use the depth right here, 50 millimeters, to define just how far out we want this thing to sketch. Now this little arrow here indicates it's going to go backwards or forwards. And if you want, we can go in a second direction. So we could actually go from the plane of the sketch in the other direction as well. But we won't bother doing that this time. And this is for thin features. So if you want to take the sketch and make it hollow, like it's made out of tin, you can do that using a thin feature. You can even cap one end, so now you can see it'll hold water. Okay, but we won't worry about that. We'll just keep the thin feature off, and we'll just have our sketch right there, and let's bring it out 100 millimeters. There we go. And at this point, we'll save that, and you see we've got our three-dimensional E. Okay, now what else can we do? That's called the extrude. Now the extrude obviously is going to go in a straight line out from any object you want. That's called an extruded boss. We can also do something called an extruded cut. Extruded cut allows us to penetrate a shape. So let's try doing an extruded cut into the E. Let's put a hexagonal hole right in the top of it here. Maybe we're going to put a hex shaft into it or something. So we're going to go sketch, and we'll just choose our polygon tool, and it says to select a plane. So I'm going to select this plane right here. So I'm going to sketch on the surface. I'm going to make a 6-sided polygon. There we go. Our 6-sided polygon right there. And now let's set a couple dimensions here. So all I've got to do is dimension one of these sides. Let's dimension it at 13 millimeters, like that. And now the other problem, it's still blue, it's still not it's fully defined. I don't know why yet. Well, I kind of do know why, but if I take it and look at it, I can drag it left or up and down, so it has no relationship to the origin. So let's make a relationship that'll kind of pin it down. Let's say from the center to this line right here, we want to be able to do a smart dimension. This line to the center, and let's make it 24 millimeters. There we go. Now I see it's still not fully defined. One of the things about these, I'll just lose that. You can see, oh, it's still free to float. Okay, so I can still move back and forth. I can't move up and down, but I can move back and forth on it. So let's set the other dimension. Let's set to a smart dimension from this point to that point, and we'll make it 13 as well. 13 as well. And now this can no longer move. Yeah, we can't. Well, but we can rotate it, right? So we still don't know the radius of this thing. Could be many different sizes. So let's set that up. From this point, where is my smart dimension? From this point to the circle. We'll make it 13 millimeters, and bang, we just locked it down. So now you see we're fully defined again, and our hexagon that we've drawn on the surface can no longer move. We've defined all of the points that make it tight. Now let's do an extruded cut. So we're going to go to features, and we're going to do an extruded cut. And now we have two choices for the cut. One is out, but there's nothing to cut into, and one is in. Now our extruded cut, there's several ways of doing it. One way is blind. The other way is through all. Both in both directions, up to the next plane, up to a vertex, up to a surface, up to a body. But in our case, let's just go through all, and that should make our cut go right through the entire body. Just to show you the difference, if I was to go to blind and I was to choose 50 millimeters, for instance, like that, you can see now it's not going to make it all the way through. It's only going to go halfway through our E. So we're going to go through all, and we'll say yes, we'll approve that, we'll check it off, and now we have a hole right through our E, all the way through. All right. Now the next thing I want to show you is the revolve function. Now the extrude function will take a three-dimensional object and extend it out a straight line, just like it was a tube of toothpaste. The revolve is going to allow us to circle around a center line. So I'm going to take this. These two parts right here, and I'm just going to make them invisible, so we don't have to look at them anymore. There we go. Visible and invisible. There we go. It's not working out. Let's do a revolve. Okay, so to do that, we're just going to lose these guys. I'll just delete that one, and yes. And I'm going to delete this sketch. Don't need that sketch anymore. Yes. And let's start by making another drawing. Let's draw a circle. Okay. And which plane? Let's draw a circle on the right plane. So now if I take that circle and I just draw it into space like this, you can see I've just got a circle drawn in the middle of space. We'll just go and make that circle a certain size. Let's define it as being 130, sounds good. 130 millimeters radius, like that. Now we're going to take this circle and we're going to revolve it around a center line, a common point that we can use as an axis. So I'm just going to create a hidden line right here, center line, and I'm going to go straight up the vertical axis. There we go. And now we're going to go to features. We're going to go to revolve, and it's going to say, well, it knows we've got a center line here. It's the only line there, so it's chosen the line as the axis of revolution, and it's chosen 360 degrees as the amount that we want this thing to revolve. So it's going to revolve around line 1 for 360 degrees, and I could do it in either direction. You can't really tell which way because it's going 160. I could take this thing and make it less. I'll make it 120 degrees, for instance. There you can see it's gotten considerably shorter. I can increase to whatever size I want. Now if I take this and if I take it now and reverse it, I can add on some length on the other side like this. So 142 degrees in one direction and 39 degrees in the other. Okay. And now we've got ourselves a half a donut. Okay, so we take this thing, let's have a look at, let's go normal to the top plane. So we go here, we can choose the front plane like this, or we can use this tool to choose any plane we want. We can choose the right plane, we can choose the left plane, we can choose the top plane, anything you like. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that revolve. Axis of revolution should be that line right there, and we'll say yes, and there's our shape. There's our shape right there. Now if we go into the revolve and we can edit that feature, yeah, we can modify it at that point if we need to. All right, so here we have just a basic shape. Okay, and of course we can also do a revolved cut into something as well if we needed to. Let's take a circle. We'll draw it on that face right there, and let's see if we can do a revolved cut through the middle of this. Okay, so we're going to go sketch. In this case, let's not even do a circle. Let's do a polygon, and we'll draw the polygon on that face right there, and let's make that centered. So from here, well, we'll just leave it the way it is for now. We won't worry about fully defining it at this stage. And then we're going to do a revolve cut. And it's going to ask what's the axis of revolution. So I can click on there and go back to my center line. Oh, we haven't defined a center line. The center line is still on the other drawing, so we can't use that one right now. So let's go back to let's go back and create a center line. We're going to have to do that. So we'll go sketch here. There we go, and we choose a. Actually, you know what we could do? I think I've seen this done before. If we go back to the sketch, and we'll just edit that sketch again. Features, revolved cut, axis of revolution. I believe if you click on the curve of this last one, this last cut, we could actually use that to help define the axis. No, that's not going to work. Okay, let's do that then. Let's just draw a line. Go here, make a center line from this point straight up again. We'll just move it till it's vertical. There it is. and that's good. And now we'll do our revolved cut around that point. So again, it's chosen that center line that I've created as the axis, and it's doing a 360-degree cut. I can reduce this to whatever I want. I can make it a 180-degree cut if I like. Okay, and go in the other direction, and now you can see it's going in from the other side. Or I can do perhaps even less. I'll do a 90-degree cut. And now you can see the center line cut is only in the middle of this thing. Okay, and well, let's make it a full 360-degree cut. Let's go all the way through 360 degrees like that, and now we have the cut all the way through our surface. So we'll just approve that, and there we have our shape that's got the our polygon cut right through the middle of it. Okay, so these are just a few of the features that'll get you going in SolidWorks. It's a very, very powerful tool, as you can imagine. There's a lot you can do with this kind of thing, but this might get you going with a few simple components. I think what I'd like to do now is just show you where the help menu is. You can see if you go to help, there's all kinds of SolidWorks help up here, and there's all kinds of tutorials. So I would suggest as you move through your journey here is start with the getting started tutorial. There's a little tutorial here. It takes about an hour, Introduction to SolidWorks. Then the next one's going to be assemblies, or lesson 1 would be on parts. You're going to learn about how to create different shapes of parts. Lesson 2 is assemblies. Lesson 3 is how to create drawings. So that's these are suggested tutorials for the beginner. Then we can go on to basic techniques of things called fillets, revolves and sweeps, pattern features, lofts, surfaces, how to do sheet metal, and all of those very powerful drawing tools. This is certainly the best way to get used to this program, is just to try out these tutorials and do the best you can. Well, I hope this helped out a little bit. I hope that it gets you going in SolidWorks and you understand the basics of this very powerful programming language, this very powerful drawing tool, and that it does good for you. If you need any help, or if you'd like to get back to me later on and ask any questions, just contact me, Craig at FRC West, and I'd be happy to help you in your SolidWorks exploration. And next week we're going to be having an advanced strategy talk with Max, so I hope to see you then. So until next week, it's Craig Maynard signing off, and just keep building.